No. Hello. Welcome to a new edition of Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth. My name is Aaron Viles. I'm excited to be with you this evening. We are going to be getting into the new legislative session, General Assembly, that is just kicking off in Frankfort. As I like to say it, the circus is back in Frankfort with all the entertainment and hijinks and not seemingly serious efforts to move our Commonwealth forward, at least under the leadership of the current supermajority GOP. So lots of important stories to get to, and really excited to have a couple of great co-hosts with me today, and really excited to be talking with Dee Pregliasco, who is with the Kentucky League of Women Voters. She's the redistricting chair, so has been working on their Fair Maps campaign. We're going to get her response to the maps that were released yesterday and earlier, and what the league thinks of them and the process by which they were created. And then we're going to close with our call to action and our events calendar. But first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? I hope you are. We know our Commonwealth has some work to do if we're going to beat back the red wave of bad politics and policy from the GOP supermajority in Frankfort, from their efforts to silence Democrats and shield policy creation from public eyes, to halting all efforts to put a historic rainy day fund to work for the people. We need your help. If you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, please join Progress Kentucky. You can do it in a very few easy steps. Just follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, kind of wherever you spend time on social media. Make sure to like and share and comment on our content to help juice those algorithms so more people hear about it, see it, and act on it. If you like what you're hearing here on Kernels of Truth, give us a thumbs up, leave us a review, or share out the show. So that's all you need to do. Pretty easy to join up. It doesn't require any sort of dues necessarily. You don't have to take any sort of test to be a member, or you don't have to swear an oath or an allegiance. Just if you want a more compassionate Commonwealth, if you want to see more progressive politics in our state, come on and help us out. So we're going to check in with our co-hosts, say who you are, where you are, and what does your protest sign say today. And you there watching on the internet, you can go ahead and share your protest sign. What are you protesting currently? My name is Aaron. I'm coming to you from Lexington, a lovely community, Childsburg. And my sign says today, I've used this one before, but it seems very appropriate for today: voters should pick their representatives, not vice versa. How about you, Doug?
Yes, I'm Doug Price from Harrison County. My protest sign, I actually printed it out again: progress or regress. I choose progress.
Lovely. And I think we are also joined by Kimberly Cecil Jones.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky. Sorry, there's a pick up there of me today because I've got the flu, you guys, but I just couldn't miss out on being with family. But my protest sign would say today: Build Back Better must pass.
Well, from your lips to Joe Manchin's ears. Thank you so much for joining us despite the health considerations you're dealing with, and I hope you feel better very soon, Kimberly. No fun to have the flu. All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about this circus being back in Frankfort. What we know is that the 60-day session kicked off this week, and the GOP were kind of immediately up to their old tricks. So introducing legislation to limit debate, so they could cut off debate as quickly as possible, and also kind of shield policy development from public scrutiny. So they would, basically reduce the requirements to let the public know what bills are being heard in what committees. Seemingly, I'm not quite sure what the value of that is, other than to keep the public in the dark about what they're up to. It's almost like they don't, want the public to know, which weird. If you're doing the people's work, if you're representing your constituents, why wouldn't you want them to know what you're doing there? And this is, of course, it's a long session. It's a 60-day session, a lot of time for things to get done. It's a budget session, so theoretically that's something they're going to need to do. They're going to need to the governor will propose a budget. They will likely not act on all the things he wants to act on, but we do have a historic rainy day fund that has been accumulated through some tax activity, and also through these big federal expenditures like the American Rescue Plan and other federal funding. There's more coming with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So those resources will be showing up. Those programs are being put together. So it should be a historic opportunity for the state to really invest in its people and its infrastructure, to apply for more federal resources through the grant programs that have been set up through the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. But it's going to take some leadership, and I don't know. I'm just a little bit, I'm a little bit skeptical that this current crop of Republicans are up to that task. I'm very happy to say that we've got Doug Price up next, who's done a kind of a deep dive on a number of the different pieces of legislation that are being brought up, and excited to hear what he has targeted. But I will say this, like right out of the gates, I've been underwhelmed with how the GOP has approached the People's House there in Frankfort. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah, there's no question. This session is going to be, I don't want to call it a bloodbath, but pretty much the Republicans have set the tone. It is my way or it's a highway. Although I did attend a Zoom meeting the other day where 4 legislators, 2 R's, 2 D's, were talking about band conversion therapy, and they were actually working together, which that was a very nice sight to see. We need more of that.
Did you? I didn't attend that. I saw that band conversion therapy was putting that together. Did they mention if they had commitments from the proper committee chairs to hear the bill? Was that something they knew about yet?
I don't remember them saying that, but you would think that with the Republican majority, if you've got a couple of Republicans who are interested in a particular bill, that will get a committee hearing. Now, if it had been 4 Democrats, there's a good likelihood that unless the Republican Senate Majority Leader and the House Leader was interested in the bill going forward, there's a likelihood that it would not even get out of a committee or even be assigned to a committee.
Right. And I think, it doesn't matter if they like the bill or not, right? If there's a Democrat leading the charge on it, they're not going to move those bills, right?
Right.
So you've got to have this kind of the servant leadership of the Democratic representatives going out, finding people from the other side of the aisle who will take on that legislation, be the primary sponsor, and be the face and the name behind it. Otherwise, it's going to get shut down. It's definitely, it's Republicans uber alles there in Frankfort. They are not looking to, share the limelight, share the credit, move things forward that the public wants. It's just what's, kind of what the Republicans want. So, I would say that good to see that the band conversion therapy folks, have Republican co-sponsors lined up. I would also say those Democrats probably should just step back and let them, talk behind the scenes to push those bills forward. Just, from a purely political perspective, that's my suggestion.
I do want to clarify one thing. I said that they were not assigned to a committee. those kind of bills that they don't want to move forward are assigned to the committee on committees, and then that's where they die.
The committee on committees. Wonderful. Kimberly, how about you? What are your hopes for this legislative session? Is there anything that you would like to see done? Are you hopeful? Are you skeptical? Are you terrified? What's your view of what's going on in Frankfort so far? And Kimberly, you are muted. All right. We are gonna, I guess, move into.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Now, yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. What I was going to say actually is this right here. You know, I'm hopeful. I always want to be hopeful. I never want to lose that. However, I am terrified because of the people that we do have in Frankfort. That have their own agenda. It's not the people's agenda. It's not what the people care about. It never is. And I feel sorry for the Democrats that are that are up there in Frankfort. I feel sorry for our governor because he doesn't get the support that he should have. So, this is kind of like wait and see, and also kind of like more of the same. That's what I would say about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like if you paid attention to the last legislative session, where it seemed like the full Republican agenda was to give our tax dollars to corporations and take away the governor's powers, this is likely going to be a little bit more of the same, with the exciting addition of screwing with the legislative districts as much as humanly possible to game the system so Republicans have as much of an advantage as they possibly can, which, they've got an advantage. There's a reason they're a super majority, but, to game the system even further in how they're drawing those maps and protect incumbents. So that's definitely something that we'll be talking about more with our guest, Dee Pregliasco, from the Kentucky League of Women Voters. But I know, Doug, you've done some diligence, some deep dive. You've got your homework done, and you've got a slate of legislative efforts that could be in the wings, could be waiting. I'm excited to hear what you've got for us.
Sure, thank you, Aaron. Last week I updated the show on some really problematic pre-file bills. Covered critical race theory, which is not being taught in Kentucky schools, but it appeals to the Republican base. Wanting to make sure that schools don't teach critical race theory. They don't have any plans to. And they also have pre-filed bills on vaccinations, specifically COVID-19. They want to allow parents to tell schools they can't make children take the COVID vaccine, even though this is beneficial for society as a whole. But tonight I'm going to focus more on some efforts that the Kentucky Democrats are championing. Of course, because they are, it's unlikely the GOP supermajority will let these bills see the light of day or even receive a committee on committee hearing. Some of these items include codifying items in the Affordable Care Act, which includes a prohibition against denying a policy issue due to pre-existing conditions or requiring preventative services at no cost, allowing individuals to remain on health insurance until age 26. Is this a Democratic or Republican issue, or a caring about a human issue? If you ask anyone on the street, they would say that, would they say they are against any or all of these items? The Democrats are going to be talking about expanding voter access, specifically extending voting hours, allowing same-day registration, enhancing absentee voting and early in-person voting, and potentially automatically restoring voting rights for certain nonviolent felony offenders. And again, is this a partisan issue? Can we all agree that each of these items can be accomplished with guardrails? When we voted in the delayed 2020 June primary elections, we had a 60% voter turnout, and that was during COVID. One person, one vote. So why not work to increase voting as opposed to restricting voting? I'm working on a report related to the Kentucky Secretary of State's office and awaiting an answer to an open records request. Secretary of State Adams has been releasing data on the number of voters removed from the voter rolls, most due to dead people being removed. It seems like it should be pretty easy to determine if dead people have voted. Certainly, we have had voter fraud in the past, but when asked this question at a LRC hearing, Secretary Adams was unable to point to an actual case of voter fraud. Louisville Republican Representative Attorney Jason Nemes once defended a person accused of voter fraud. The culprit was found guilty. As part of this report, I'm analyzing the 1955 constitutional amendment change to the Kentucky Constitution, which determined that idiots and insane people cannot vote. Would you believe that 531 voters declared mentally incompetent have been removed from the voter rolls from January through November of 2021, including 269 in June of 2021? Most states allow for felony offenders to have their voting rights restored. If you do the crime, you should serve the time. But again, one person, one vote. Some states do not take away the right to vote even when a person is in prison. Is Kentucky in the dark ages? Another hot button issue is legalizing medicinal marijuana. On KET's Kentucky Tonight, Republican Senator Damon Thayer was questioned about an issue, and he said that he supported it because over 70% of Kentuckians support that issue. Later, when asked about supporting the legalization of medicinal marijuana, he stated emphatically that he was against legalization. One of the other legislators noted that this issue is supported by over 90% of Kentuckians. And when Thayer was asked about this, suddenly it became an issue of, I don't support. So essentially telling 90% of Kentuckians to, well, there are a lot of ways I can say this, but maybe not on this show. So I'll just leave it at that. The next item that is on the Democrats' agenda is paying for universal pre-K. Who would be against this? What would a poll on this issue reflect? Again, this is not an R or D issue. This should be a slam dunk. Another important issue is restoring emergency powers to the governor. Governor Beshear worked to mitigate the COVID-19 pandemic, and the Republican-controlled legislature fought him at every turn. Can we agree that the CEO of the Commonwealth needs powers in order to act quickly and not have to call legislators in order to get an okay? The last item I'm going to touch on deals with the horse racing industry. They would like to make some changes which would allow the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission to regulate the licensure and operation of sports wagering. Just about every state contiguous to Kentucky has allowed this, and also to be able to regulate fantasy contests and online poker games. This one should be interesting because in the 2020 short session, legislators passed a historic racing bill that allowed the Commonwealth to circumvent the Kentucky Constitution, and legislators pledged they would increase the amount of revenue being provided to the state's coffers during this session. If they don't, then we would have the specter of politicians breaking their word. Oh my. Lastly, I think House Democratic leader Joni Jenkins said it best. These issues have had wide support from across the Commonwealth over the years, and she added that they're needed to raise much needed revenue, provide medicinal relief, protect health care, restore longstanding gubernatorial powers, and enhance voter access. Again, who can vote against these items? Not I. I say kudos to those progressive members of the House. Back to you, Aaron.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty solid lineup of common sense legislation that I'm sure will not move forward. Although, I think the medical marijuana one is certainly one that, there's been, a lot of support from a Republican at least, right? There's Jason Nemes, I think, has worked really hard to try to advance that. I don't know that things are much different this legislative session than previous legislative sessions under that common sense legislation, but hopefully, fingers crossed. And again, it's something that people can contact their lawmakers and ask them directly. I think that's one thing that we haven't said it yet, but no matter who your lawmaker is, even if you vehemently disagree with them, make sure you are in contact with them. Make sure you're communicating with them and they are hearing it, they are seeing it. You can call the legislative, the hotline and leave a message for them. You can at least leave a message for the entire, House or the entire Senate if you like. But always make sure to leave a message with your lawmaker and that they know that you are in fact a constituent and you are paying attention. That stuff matters, especially on this common sense legislation that Doug just ran through. So I think we've got Kimberly, do you want to weigh in on that kind of slate of bills, or do you want to get into your news items?
I think I'm just going to get into my news items at this point because it kind of ties a little bit into that. What we're going to be talking about today.
All right. And how much time are we going to take to talk about it? What are we doing? Last time we did this, you came in under 5 minutes, so I was very impressed. And I think you're going to keep the streak alive.
I think I can. I can. Okay.
All right.
Who's timing me? I don't want Doug to do it. I think he cheated.
Doug is very even-handed. He's not a cheater.
Well, you know what my mama
timer's
said.
Going, you better.
My mama always said cheaters never win. So I'm just saying. Okay, here we go. Ready, set, go. All right. Now, first of all, Kentucky Republican floor leader, Senator Damon Thayer, doesn't care if you or any other Kentuckian wants medical marijuana legalized. And actually, we should be.
Kimberly, I don't know what has happened. We can't hear you right now, I don't think. Check your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes.
Okay. So, can you hear me now?
Still yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Still yes.
Okay.
Maybe this is counting against your time, just to be clear.
No, you have to take that off. No, really. So in a KET interview, and I think this is what we were talking about earlier, the Georgetown lawmaker said he doesn't support it, as we well know. But here goes the other caveat to that. This is what Damon Thayer said. He said, Kentucky lawmakers know they can keep getting reelected if they have a bit of power and an R in front of their name. We know that Mitch McConnell's been doing it. But how about this if I tell you that he said to all of his constituency, if you don't like it, you can take it out on me in the next election. And he is not up for election until 2024, as we well know. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes. Still here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next thing is a solid nominee.
Oh, spoke too soon. Now we can't hear you. What is going on with your audio? Cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm on my phone today. I'm not on the computer. That might be the reason why. Okay, but let's move right along here to a solid nominee for District 42. The Louisville Democratic Party has chosen our nominee to run for Representative Reginald Meeks' State House seat as the longtime lawmaker prepares to retire. We went through all of that, and there were 3 contenders or candidates, as you may call, and Keturah Herron was the undisputed winner of that. And she is a former ACLU lobbyist who pushed for Louisville and Kentucky to ban no-knock warrants. She also is the first openly LGBTQIA plus House member in Kentucky's history. And of course, she's not the only promising candidate. It is noted that Robert Levertis Bell, a Democratic socialist and public school teacher, says he will also be on the ballot for.
Oh, we lost you, Kimberly. So that's the District 42. All right, you're back.
Okay, I'm back. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I think I'm this, the devil is a liar. Okay. So, New Year, more violence. And this is about Jefferson County. Okay. Louisville closed out another blood soaked year with a record breaking 188 homicides in 2021. And the crime wave does not show signs of stopping. The shooting that resulted in the first homicide of 2022 occurred on New Year's Day. Perhaps Louisville's greatest hope of stemming the tide of violence is stricter gun laws, but of course, the Kentucky legislature only seems interested in making it easier for people to get their hands on firearms in the current legislative season. So, also, as far as Rand Paul is concerned, he's announced that he will no longer be posting to YouTube unless it's to criticize the platform, which has suspended him in the past for spreading COVID.
Oh, we lost you, Kimberly.
And Paul.
Now you're back.
Now, Rand Paul is just going to be talking his mess to an empty chamber as usual because nobody gives a damn about what Rand Paul says.
You know,
I can't even read.
I will say this. I feel for him a little bit because we've also been blocked in that, you know, when we dared talk about COVID, you know, the fact that we talked about vaccines and that people should get vaccines and that Rand Paul was misinforming people about COVID, that got us like blocked on the channel. So I feel you, Rand. But yeah, you should stop spreading misinformation. Then it's probably more likely you'll still stay on the
I don't have any sympathy for him. I'm sorry. I have no sympathy for Rand Paul or any of them. I really don't. That's the reason why our lives are so hard now, because of them.
Well, I'm not saying we should reelect him. I'm just saying the YouTube platform was a little arbitrary in my judgment. They felt a little arbitrary when they were knocking down our videos. But yeah, I shouldn't interrupt because you've got 5 minutes. And do you have any more stories to tell?
I do have something that I would like to say very quickly. There is a young lady right here in Jefferson County. She has been missing since the day after Christmas. Her name is Twanisha Lewis, and people have been able to reach out to her, but she's running in the streets, and she's has a missing persons report on her. The police are looking for her, but we don't know if she's running somewhere else in Kentucky. She's only 15 years of age. She's 5'5", 137 pounds, and anybody can go to my Facebook page, Kimberly Cecil Jones, to see a picture of Twanisha Lewis. And lo and behold, her mother, Marie Wren, also back in 2016, both of her sons were murdered at the same time by Bryce Rhodes. So this is just a lot for this community, a lot for that family. So I thank you. I'm done.
So Doug, how'd that turn out? Look at that. So apparently that's the sweet spot. We should give Kimberly 5 minutes, and no matter what's happening, no matter what audio difficulties are going on, even if I interrupt her a little bit, she's still gonna hit the be under 5 minutes. So news under 5 minutes. That's what we've got as our
Yay!
And that was our news of the week. So thanks so much for tuning in for that. We are going to be speaking very, very quickly with Dee Pregliasco. But before we bring her on, I want to remind our audience that, you know, the Western Kentucky tornado impacts and recovery, the relief work there is still absolutely underway. It's really important for people to stay involved and to stay supportive. Our friends with Four Rivers Indivisible are doing some, handing out masks to people so they can stay safe in that process. That's a really great grassroots effort. There's another couple ways we're encouraging people to help. The two ways that we are asking folks to get involved: support the governor's Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund, and then also our partners with the Commonwealth Alliance donor table, the Kentucky Civic Engagement Table, or KSET, and Hood to the Holler have a mutual aid fund to be directed to grassroots groups supporting the short-term and long-term mutual aid and disaster relief for for those communities who were impacted by the tornadoes. They're going to be prioritizing the groups that serve Kentuckians who may otherwise be neglected by relief efforts, Black, Indigenous, people of color, refugee, immigrant, poor, working class Kentuckians. And again, I was in New Orleans when Katrina happened, and I can tell you kind of the firsthand stories I heard about people who kind of slipped through the cracks, that FEMA or Red Cross were not able to meet their needs, unwilling to meet their needs. It's really important that groups on the ground have the resources to step in, because those it's real. It's going to be an issue. So that's one kind of two things you could do to help out for sure that would be very valuable. All right, so just want to make sure that we have Dee. Dee is here and ready to go. So Dee is, I believe, the redistricting chair of the Kentucky League of Women Voters.
Yes.
The Kentucky League of Women Voters has been incredibly active, since the first whiff of redistricting happening. Obviously, it's something we can predict. We know it's happening. It's every 10 years based on the census. But they were, advocates for a fair maps process, and were very vocal and organized in their efforts to ensure the process for new maps would be fair. And we, now that the maps, the first maps are proposed and are out, we wanted to check back in with Dee to get her take on how that process went, and whether or not it's fair, and what does the League of Women Voters think of what we're seeing right now. So Dee, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Very good. Obviously, this is a busy week. It's the first days of the legislature meeting, and they have already put forth their bills for the House maps, the Senate maps, and the congressional maps. So tell me, how much time do I have? Because you can imagine we've been so immersed in this effort really intensely since 2017 that I could talk about this forever. So just give me an idea, or shut me up whenever you think I need to be quiet.
I think we've got about 15 or 20 minutes for our conversation. We want to make sure that we are kind of done by the time Andy goes live with his State of the Commonwealth address, and that starts at 7. So we got some time. We can maybe not the full history of the league's engagement, but the highlights for sure.
Well, let me just emphasize this, that the league is nonpartisan. We don't support parties or candidates. But what we have pushed for would be an open, transparent process that would have public input. And what's interesting is it turns out, obviously, Democrats and Republicans all over the country have been bad actors. And the Democrats controlled the situation in Kentucky for years, probably decades, several decades. But what's interesting is if you go back and look at the record, you can find that Republicans pushed for independent commissions or advisory commissions. And that's what we pushed for starting last year in 2020, as well as this year. So for 2 years, we've pushed having an advisory commission to the legislature, because the Constitution of Kentucky provides that the power to do redistricting resides in the legislature. So we know that. We knew that. What we were pushing for is an advisory commission. In other words, go out in the state, have public hearings, and get input from people all over Kentucky. Again, the voters that put the legislators there in office, listen to them before you do this map drawing process. We got nowhere last year, nowhere this year, even with pushing forward. We pushed a joint resolution that they would have an open process. We actually talked with some legislators, both Republican and Democratic. You all might know we put out maps last year with the old census numbers. And this year we put them out twice. One about September, when the first information came out that had the details. And then in the 1st of December of this year, after we had 8 public forums all over the state, we published maps again. And you can find all of that on our website, lwvky.org. It's a wealth of information about redistricting, and I hope people listening will do that and educate themselves about this issue. What puts us at odds, and why we have not approved the House maps or the Senate, what the Senate has put forth, even though the House wanted us to, they kept asking, are you going to approve our maps, is we paid no attention to incumbents. Our position is, and that's the National has that position, and National pushes that position even where there are Democrats as well as Republicans. So it's our national position. You don't protect incumbents. In other words, we, the voters, should pick our elected officials. They shouldn't pick us. But what's interesting is when Senator Stivers testified today, it was really interesting to hear him say, we didn't pit incumbents against incumbents. Well, guess what? That supports our point right there, is they protected incumbents. And we didn't do that at all. And we don't think that's what should happen. So what about the maps? Let me sort of, because I'll be glad to take some questions for those that are on too. Let me talk about the House maps first. But let me remind everybody of this. This is what makes all of us really angry. The House maps were produced last Thursday. They had a press conference. That's the Thursday of a holiday weekend before they were going to introduce the bill yesterday, which they did. The Senate did not introduce their bill to today, so we didn't have any idea what the Senate maps for both the Senate and Congress looked like until yesterday. Now, you tell me, this is a fairly complicated process. It involves the whole state, involves 120 counties, all the cities, all the precincts, everything all over the state. All right, does that give anybody, and let's face it, we've been immersed in it for a long time, does it give anybody time to review the maps, analyze the maps, get public comments, and then get that information back to the legislature? Obviously not. What Representative Osborne said on Thursday was this bill will be introduced Tuesday and we'll vote on it no later than Saturday. Now, what does that say right there? That's not an open, transparent process with public input. While we met with some of the Republican legislators and met with one of the Republican senators, and we shared our maps. Our maps were out there for the public to see last year and all of this year. We shared things with them, but it's not as though while they were drawing them that they actually came to us and sat down, or for that matter, any groups other than incumbents. They all have said this, oh yeah, we talked to officials in various counties, et cetera. Well, what we know what they did is they talked to each other. They talked to fellow representatives or fellow senators. So how about the House? Well, you can again see those maps, and they have finally put those online, and you can see them compared to what we've done. And the House Democrats have put up maps also. But what we do know is that there are a lot of issues involving the sort of slicing and dicing of some of the counties that have fairly substantial cities. So we're concerned, and again, we don't have we need the data and the principles that they used, and we have not been able to get that yet. In other words, because you drew this particular part of the map this way, what did you use? Now, we know they have to use population numbers. That's critical. They have to provide for minority communities having a chance to elect representatives and senators. And communities of interest is a broad term that even includes cities and counties and communities that have interests that are in common. But we're concerned about Christian County, Davis County, Franklin, Hardin, Jessamine, Madison, Pike, and Pulaski. And then one of the more interesting ones as far as the House is Laurel County. That's where London is. London being the main, obviously it's not huge, but the main sort of city area in Laurel County and that general area. Instead of Laurel County having some sense of having a representative that would represent London, Laurel County is divided up with 6 other counties. Now, what they say is, oh, well, that means they have 6 representatives who can represent their interests in Frankfort. Well, what we know that's not, well, first off, it's not reality. It doesn't work. First of all, you got to get those 6 people to agree, and they all represent other different constituencies surrounding Laurel County, but not Laurel County itself, and certainly not London. So that doesn't work. We learned that especially from Hopkinsville, which is in Christian County. They talk to us a lot. They've had their own public forums and town halls several times. Hopkinsville is a very compact city. You may have heard me say this before, but they had 3 different representatives who whose greater numbers were in the counties that they represented surrounding Hopkinsville and Christian County. So we know that that doesn't work. So in Hopkinsville, your office might be in one district, your kid's school in another, your church even in another. And then, of course, you might live in one of those three. So that doesn't work. And the question is, did they divide up in doing what they did this time? Which, and I haven't got all of this memorized yet, but if they gave it 2 districts, did they divide up the minority population in Christian County, which is not like Louisville or Lexington, but does have some significance? And again, that's why we want to look at those particular counties. And then you have the Jefferson County area, and we know there that some things were done, and we again don't have enough of the data and the principles that they use to in any way challenge that. And the question is, you can still gerrymander, even though you sort of look at it, you say, oh, well, that looks better than it did the last time. Maybe it doesn't have any tentacles, but you can still gerrymander in the way you spread out a district. So that's the question, obviously, that Representative Mackenzie Cantrell and Lisa Wilner have to deal with, as well as Mary Lou Marzian and Josie Raymond. And again, I don't have enough specifics to know about that, and I'm sure that they are looking at that. What's interesting, though, is they've kept talking about, in fact, Representative Nema said this over and over, he talked about communities. I grew up in the south end of Louisville, and I know, Southern Parkway is a dividing line, and Representative Mackenzie Cantrell lives on this side, et cetera. But in the process, they spread that district out to put both of them in the same district, Wilner and Cantrell. But yet that district covers both the east side of I-65 and the west side of I-65. Now, that's certainly a big dividing line to think about. Do the communities on the east side of 65, and of course, that includes also the issue of the airport and the fairgrounds and UPS. So we're talking about people who live in maybe Ottoman Park and then going all the way over to Southern Parkway. I don't think that makes any sense at all. But again, it will be up to them to figure that out. Again, we don't have enough data yet. We're hoping we can get it. We also had some issues in the House with Fayette County in northern Kentucky. The same sorts of issues about how they were slicing and dicing the cities. Covington and the cities along the river are some issues there. And then did they take part of Covington and put it with the rural Pendleton County next door? Where Covington is an old city that's been there a long time. They've apparently, as Representative Wheatley said today, they've annexed some places. So that's obviously a community of interest. So what about that? And then Pike County, also some real issues there. I can't talk about all the specifics there. We're trying to look at the data, get the data to figure that out. So we were able to testify with our statement, which has gone out. Our House statement has gone out today, as well as we put a House statement out on Sunday. We were able to testify today to that committee. I testified virtually. What alarmed us is we wanted to testify to the Senate today, but they would not accept virtual testimony. Well, with COVID, with the positivity rate, even just in Jefferson County, of being over 20%, and all of the issues related to that, none of us were willing to go and risk going into the Capitol with people. And if you looked, how many people did not have on masks, both in the audience as well as the senators and representatives. So we were disappointed in that, but we did read did have our statements submitted to the Senate committee. So what about the Senate work? What about it? Well, again, they said Senator Cyber said, oh, we didn't pit incumbents against each other, which means they're protecting incumbents. But please look at the Senate map that should be online, and there's some real questions there about Jefferson County, Fayette County, Kenton, and Warren. And in Jefferson County, one of the things that we noticed today is they've taken Senator Karen Berg's district and dropped it down where it almost goes from the Ohio River all the way down to the Bullitt County line. So that seems to be a real change. And why is that? And again, we just have to look at the data and be able to do that. Takes time, and all of this should not be rushed. Now, one of the interesting things is that for whatever reason, and I'm not sure it's related to law or whether it's related to just agreement, the House lets the state Senate deal with the congressional districts. Again, interesting because the statements from the committee today were, well, we looked at these districts and we consulted with the representatives. We don't have any problem with that, but what about the people in the districts? So one of the things, and I don't know if you can see it in the background, I'll try to move one way or the other. Here's the old district of the House, of the Senate, of the congressional districts. And we've talked about this before, this kind of sort of a dragon here of the first district that comes all the way up to Marion. Then there was the dog with the ears of the second district that goes all the way from Davis County over to Garrett County. Okay, so those were obviously issues for us. Now I don't have a color example of this, but I'm going to hold.
Actually, I can pull it up for you.
Can you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. So let's pull up the new one. All right. Look at this. Just take a moment and look at that and see if that's an improvement of this old one. Just look
Good
at
Lord, District 1 is insane. How can anyone think that is a rational way to draw a district?
Exactly. Well, it puts Franklin County, which is in central Kentucky, not far actually from Louisville.
It's historically been District 6.
Right, historically in District 6, all the way over to Fulton County, which is on the Mississippi River. Now, I think there are two thoughts about this. We're not saying which is true, or they could both be untrue. But what we know is that District 1 is represented by Comer. Comer has since moved to and been living in Franklin County for a while. His children go to school there. Apparently, they go to church there. Yes, he supposedly has a farm in Monroe County, but where he lives and stays most of the time is in Franklin County. And look what they did. If you show that map, you can see to get to Franklin County, they had to divide Anderson County. Again, you're right. That makes no sense. Another interesting thing is Boyle County. Look where Boyle County is right there, which has been part of. It's like 30 miles or less from Lexington. Is been put in this district. So that's a possibility where they protecting Comer. But then there's another theory. Well, were they trying to keep Franklin County out of the 6th district to try to wield more power in the 6th district? Because there's some thought that Barr, the 6th district congressman, is weaker as far as anybody challenging him. And so is that why they did that? Who knows? But
Franklin County is certainly a county that can go Democrat, and it has in the past. It hasn't always, but it can. So that's more of a battleground county, which of course makes things easier for Andy Barr to hold on to the 6th district, or any Republican to hold on to the 6th district, which is the one we've kind of always thought as the next most competitive for a Democrat after, of course, the Louisville-based district. So
and if you put the map back up again, Aaron. So, the question is, would they say, oh, well, but look what we didn't divvy up, which was everybody was afraid of. We didn't divvy up the 3rd district, Louisville. So there's just a little bit of Louisville on the east that is part of 2. Of course, would it make more sense for it to be part of 4 like it used to be and not have 4 come down? And again, these are all the numbers, and it just takes time to do this analysis. That's the issue. Now, one of the things that they always come back with, and Representative Nemes, who I've talked to a lot about all of this, well, the Democrats did this, the Democrats did that. I agree. The Democrats for decades gerrymandered. I mean, they gerrymandered Louisville, they gerrymandered the state. As Representative Angie Hatton said the other day, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And one of the things that we've said to everybody we've talked to, but particularly the Republicans, is be the good guys, do it right, have an open process, have it transparent, take public input, and be the good guys for good government. Okay? Do that. I mean, there's still some issues about our voting registration, and I know there was discussion about Senator Adams, but at least we're not other places in regards to that, and we could be better about the redistricting also. Now, yes, there were the population changes. In other words, one of the things that was pointed out in the House maps was, oh, well, we put 2 Republicans against each other in the East and 2 Republicans against each other in the West. Well, they had to do that because the populations were
There's no
changed.
way you could get around it completely.
Right, exactly. Absolutely no way at all to do that.
I'm sure they tried.
Oh, right. So again, we're going to, the fear is pretty strong, and I'm sure it's going to happen, even though the Democrats are filing their own bills. They want to rush this through. Now they are moving the deadline for filing just for 1 year, moving it back to the 25th of January, which it used to be, just for this year. So if they're doing that, to me, they could spend from now until the 25th getting public input about these maps with all of the details and information that you need to really analyze it. And they're not doing it. I mean, one of the things to look at, if you look at the Senate map, the prior Senate map, Warren County, and that was one of the ones I think I was mentioning, Kenton, Warren, Fayette, and Jefferson. Warren County had its own senator the last time, and now it's diced up into 3. So, Bowling Green's and Warren County is one of the fastest growing counties in the Commonwealth. It's part of the I-65 corridor. So again, there's some Democratic people down there. So again, what are they trying to do?
I think it's pretty clear what they're trying to do, Dee. Dee, this has been wonderful, and we appreciate all your insights here. It seems like that fair and open and transparent process that you've advocated for, and in fact demonstrated, was thrown out the window. They did not take the opportunity. I'll be frankly partisan. The GOP absolutely did not take that opportunity to be the good guys. And as Angie Henton said, 2 wrongs don't make a right, but maybe it makes a left. So I don't. They absolutely have taken advantage that they had every advantage they had. They took advantage of, and this is it's disappointing to see, certainly. But I don't. Are there legal opportunities to chat? Like that first district seems so clearly gerrymandered to a point that it's gotta be, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an election lawyer, but that seems that should be illegal.
Well, I think because I am a lawyer, people ask me, are you going to file suit? We don't have enough information. Obviously, if these pass, and there are lots of other groups that are looking at these, even the minority districts that they say they've increased the minority districts by 1 in Jefferson County. There's some question about that. Supposedly the NAACP approves, not maybe as wholeheartedly as they seem to want. But again, you really have to analyze all those numbers. So I think there are other groups. So even if they pass them this week by Saturday, obviously the governor still has to sign them. The question is, will he veto them? And then, then there's all the possibility of potential lawsuits. And, we joined a lawsuit with the NAACP and the Urban League and the ACLU last year in regards to the voting issues. Would we join a suit? We don't have the structure, are they any way to file a lawsuit ourselves? But would we join? I don't know. That's too early for us to make any of those kinds of decisions. But I know lots of other groups, are looking at it. And of course, I got angry this fall thinking about all this because here we are. We're all volunteers. We put on 100+ presentations all over the state. We did 8 public forums, and what have they done? It's like, wait, you're being paid to do this. We're all volunteers.
Yeah. We should get our money back, I really think.
Right.
So Dee, thanks again. I know that Doug has a question for you. So I want to give it over to Doug, but we are going to need to move on because we're getting close to our hour, and we want to let people who are watching live transition to watch the governor in his State of the Commonwealth address.
And that's fine. I appreciate that. Yes, Doug.
Just a quick observation, I guess, on Comer. I think it's legal. He could live anywhere in the state where he wants to.
Right, he can.
I think the optics of him living in Frankfort and it not being his district is something that he obviously was worried about. I can't imagine that the legislators just decided on their own to do that without input from him.
Exactly. Because if you look at the map, they could have taken the population from other places and it would have made more sense.
It's just crazy. Looking at the historic first and second district, like, well, that's clearly something that should get cleaned up. It's, oh no, we found the one way to make it even more outrageous and ludicrous. Like,
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Right. One of the questions should be is, should we vote that you have to live in the district? I mean, maybe that's what should happen. I don't know. So thank you all for having me. Really appreciate it. Check out our website, lwvky.org. Lots of redistricting information, as well as all kinds of other information too about voting. We actually have a voting committee too, particularly for former felons. So look into that. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dee. Thanks for all your hard work. And I'm sorry that they didn't listen a little more closely to the very sensible suggestions you guys were making.
All right. Thank you so much. All right.
Have a great night. All right. So we're going to need to close out. And I think if Kimberly's audio is working and if Kimberly is here, I'm going to point you to close us out. All right, Kimberly?
Can you hear me?
Yes, for the moment.
I love Miss D. I love her. The last time she was on, I said if I could pronounce her last name correctly, I treated myself to some ice cream. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yeah.
So I'm going to say we got some chocolate ice cream and some vanilla in the refrigerators, the freezers. So Dee Pregliasco.
Boom.
Correct?
I think you got it. I think you deserve it. Treat yourself.
Thank you.
But first, close out the show, ma'am.
I sure am. So we'll be back next week.
Oh, what? All right. She's right, though. Kimberly's right. We will be back next week. And I'm going to talk. If she comes back, she can absolutely cut me off and jump right back in.
I'm here.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, T-Mobile has to be the worst, right? So anyway, thank you so much to our great guest tonight. She always comes with a wealth of information. Thank you to Annabelle, also our social media chair. She does a great job each week doing this podcast for us. And thank you so much to Dougie Fresh, as I call him, and to Aaron. And we just really appreciate all that you guys do. So come join us next week. I'm not sure who our guest is going to be, but I heard something was brewing and it's going to be absolutely great. Okay, so you got to make sure that you come back. Then also, I would just like to say very quickly, in addition to that, that production this evening was by Annabelle, as I said, and the Jones Report is coming back very, very soon. I'll let you know when. Thank you to Nate for the theme song. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook, don't worry. You can rewatch our shows and see our source links on Facebook and YouTube. Or audio podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. So I do need to say the disclaimer very, very quickly. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4, is affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, otherwise known as CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. And some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media.
All right. And that's the wrap. Folks, have a great evening. If you're watching live, go to KET now and check out the governor's State of the Commonwealth address. We will see you all back here next week.
Wait a minute, Aaron. One thing. We got 1 minute. You know, I would just like to say our thoughts and prayers go out to Daryl Owens, who has contributed over 50 years of political freedom for the state of Kentucky. And we just give well wishes and prayers to his family because he has passed. Okay. Love you guys. Do something good this week.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly.